Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? And I have to say this 3 times. What? Are you really serious? Well, the top Federal Reserve officials, some of them, or at least one of them, is saying we need to lock down the economy for 6 weeks. Lock everything down hard, he said, real hard. And that's the only way to save the economy. I mean, this might be the most ludicrous statement. I'm not an economist, but I have never heard anybody, what part of shutting down an economy does he not understand hurts an economy? But anyway, Neil Kaskari, the president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank, said the nation needs to control the spread of the virus, which is increasing across much of the country, to get back on the path of economic health. He said, quote, "That's the only way we're really going to have a real robust economic recovery. Otherwise, we're going to have flare-ups, lockdowns, and very halting recovery with many more job losses, many more bankruptcies for an extended period of time." He went on to say, I mean, if we were to just lock down really hard, I know I hate to even suggest it, he said, people will be frustrated by it, but if we were to lock down hard for a month or 6 weeks, we could get this economy going again. This right here, I've lost my, is he lost his mind? Can we find out from an expert? We need Trade Genius Academy. We need Bob Cuddler to make sense of the chaos of the top Federal Reserve banker. What's going on, Bob?
Well, since I've lost my mind, I'm qualified to opine on his. So nobody listens to Neil Kashkari anyway. So I don't know what political angle he's trying to suggest. Maybe he thinks that if Biden wins, he'll get picked for the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He's been angling for that for a long time. Look, he's a Goldman Sachs banker, and that's all you need to know about him. Let's be really clear here. The American people are done with masks. They're done with lockdown. They're not going to be buying the vaccine. And, I think people now are sweet on the constant shifting sands of the coronavirus. I don't know if you noticed in Germany, 1.3 million people in Berlin protested against the German lockdown. And so the Europeans now are starting to get agitated. They didn't get bought off with the unemployment money like they did here in the United States, but that ended as of yesterday or Friday.
Right.
And now they're going to be dickering here. We don't know what's going to come from this next round of stimulus, but at the very least, there's going to be a delay in it. And I think the Republicans have noticed that Trump poll numbers are now, they can't even hide the fact that he's winning now in the battleground states. So, you can tell he had a little bit different view here. You notice the Senate Majority Leader, also Mitch McConnell, says, hey, we're not in a big rush anymore. I think they're getting polling data that tells them that the people are scared witless of the Democrats taking power in this country, because they see what their life will be like when the Democratic leftists and their stormtroopers start to invade their towns and cities and villages, and their elected leaders who don't play ball. And so I think they overplayed their hand once again. And this Kashkari thing, just don't even worry about it. The only way you're going to stop this virus is basically 2 ways. Herd immunity, where enough people get it that it can't ping off of people anymore and it burns out. Or 2, you have what's called genetic drift, and it just drifts itself out of being relevant. And no other way, so, it doesn't really matter if you lock down. When you stop locking down, you notice you get a surge. And if you notice in Texas and Arizona, that surge is already abating. Yeah. And so, it's going to have to play itself out. The people that need to hide are the people that are morbidly obese, that are having comorbidity. If you're over 70 years old, you probably should take better precautions, stay in shape, talk to your doctor about getting the hydroxychloroquine. Don't let these statists try to block valuable medical, therapeutics. And so other than that, we just have to just trust God and move on. The interesting thing about it, SARS killed a lot of kids, and we heard nothing about it. Nothing. My daughter was in 5th or 6th grade, she easily could have got it and been killed by it. But we heard nothing from Obama about, hey, we got to lock the schools down. Now you want to lock the schools down, and the teachers don't want to go back unless all these other social conditions are met. Same with the pro sports people. These people are overplaying their hand, and the American people don't like it.
Bob, it's really, again, folks, this is Bob Cuddler with TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Bob, you talk about people don't like it. I was watching baseball this weekend with cardboard people in the stands, and then I was watching the NBA with fake crowd noise, and I said to myself, and all of this propaganda being pushed down her throat, I'm trying to watch the basketball game, and I'm saying, I don't know if I'm watching a basketball game or a video game or a documentary or some kind of propaganda show, and I'm saying, what is going on with America? I mean, what in the world is going on? Is this the new America they want us to have, Bob, where we all live in a 800 square foot apartment and pay twice as much? And what's going on here?
Yeah, so, right. The America that the elites want is basically for us to go back into a feudal society where you have what I would call the super elites that own everything, and then they got their layer of sycophants, and then they got their layer of bureaucracy, and then they got their stormtroopers. Then you got a thin merchant class, and then everybody else is poor and dependent or poor and slave driven. And that's what they want. And, people don't realize before the French Revolution, 99% of the world lived this way. That's why, if you could ever have an intelligent conversation with anybody that's from, the slave reparation movement, is that, look, my great-grandparents were essentially serfs. They were bonded to the land of a landowner in Germany and Austria. They had no rights. And when the Scottish, a lot of the Scottish that came over and populated the South, they were indentured servants. 7 years of bonded servitude to pay for the trip over, plus interest and a little bit extra, right? And look, I'm not belittling the African American experience. I'm just saying that was a common experience, and that people were treated very, very poorly. And in Pennsylvania, the Irish were called the Black Irish. I don't know if you remember that, in Molly Maguire's. When the Italians came over, they were called Guineas and Wops, and they had nothing. So this is why the elite always wants to push a new poor immigrant into the country, because they need to feed the beast. Look, these people are what's called the idle rich, and they're idle for a reason, because they let their money do the work for them, and then they want to pay the least amount possible for labor. Look, Apple's the richest, Amazon the richest companies in the world, Nike, and they're out there actively looking for the cheapest possible labor for their products. And so it's just in their nature, Paul. And so they never liked this. And the European elites, where a lot of this comes from, they never accepted the fact that America broke free, that America became so incredibly wealthy. They all had to give up their claims to America, right? The Spanish, the French, the English, they all had to give up their claims to America because they couldn't maintain it because of their internecine warfare they had. They never gave up on that, so they tried in Civil War. They tried to play us off on each other, and then they're basically they're mercenaries. We got dragged into World War I. We got dragged into World War II. We got dragged over to the Middle East to defend their oil fields. for them. And, Trump comes along and he's like, no mas. And they don't like it. And that's all part of it. So the elites want this global environment where the elites control. They have no problem dealing with the communist Chinese because they look like them.
You made it, folks, what an analogy. I mean, I think Americans have been the slave mercenary fighters for Europe and the Middle East for 100 years. And that's exactly what you just played out in front of us. The American blessing upon this nation is freedom. The entrepreneur spirit, the ability to be whatever you want to be. It don't matter what background you come from. I mean, my family, I grew up as poor as Job's turkey. I mean, I understand exactly exactly how this thing works. It's just, you got to show up every day, folks, and make it happen. And you have that great opportunity in this country. That's just the way it is. But it's incredible what we're witnessing now. And now they want to shut down everything. Trump is saying no more, no mas, no mas, no mas. Germany, you're going to have to start paying. Look, you guys are going to have to pay us if we're going to have to take care of you. And so it's a total different mentality, and he's trying to ram that home, and the global elitists don't like it, the liberals don't like it, the lefties don't like it, the communists, the socialists, the Marxists, they don't like it. But meanwhile, in the middle of this crazy year, here's the numbers. The Dow is at 26,654, holding steady. Gold, all-time high right now, $1,984.49 an ounce. Silver, $24.51 an ounce. Bitcoin, $11,401 a coin. So, Bob, we're witnessing precious metals, of course, and Bitcoin, alternative assets on the rise. That makes sense because you have an unstable economy, but yet the stock market's holding steady, and Trump's trying to reopen the economy, and people are sensing that we certainly don't want to shift to Biden. So what should people do? Folks, this is Bob Cuddler. He's at TradeGeniusAcademy.com, and he is an expert in helping you understand how to navigate your way through this economic world we're in. Pick up the phone. You can call him even at 800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. How do we navigate through this, Bob?
Yeah, so, before we got on together, I said, hey, I didn't see any new charts or any new attaboys because nothing has changed, so when the horse you're riding is winning, you stay on it. So, we think now there could be some wiggles here and there. August and September actually is kind of a bit of a weak period for gold and silver. It might not play out this year because of the momentum, but our view is by the end of 2021, you're going to see gold around 2,900. You'll see silver around $45. Remember, last year when you and I were talking, I said we will see gold at 2,000 and we would see silver at 25. So those predictions already hit.
You
and
nailed
we still
it.
have
Yeah,
5 months to go.
You hit it.
And
nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah. And so that's still going to keep moving. And so what works with that are the miners underneath it, the silver miners and the gold miners. And that's what we've been trading. And, today, again, they started off selling them off early, and they got bought back during the day. And that's a definition of a bull market. So when something gets sold early in the day and gets bought back, something gets sold early in the week and gets bought back, is that showing that there's institutional interest in buying. These are gold and silver, especially the silver miners, Paul, are the most undervalued asset in the world. So when people ask me, what should I buy silver miners. And if you want to trade in and out of them to get better and better prices, we can help you with that. If you want to buy them and hold on, buy them and hold on. But they're going to rock, and they're going to continue to rock. Now, when you and I talked last month, I said, hey, we're at the end of the third inning. We're going into the fourth inning on this because we've already had doubles in a lot of these. Now, this next period is considered the big wave. So we should see now what's called recognition. when the analysts start repricing the value of the silver and gold that's still sitting in the ground, and they start then raising the estimates of the values of these companies, and then you're going to start seeing doubles and triples come from even these levels, and then you're going to start seeing the bigger players start buying out the smaller players because they want to have more certainty over the value they're buying versus trying to put a straw in the ground and dig up some gold and silver. But it's not just that. It's uranium is at a deficit. Platinum and palladium are at deficit. So we're trading on all of those things. And I'm not making a moral judgment here, but there's also now because all these people are home and the social mores have changed, is that the marijuana stocks and the marijuana growing is at deficit too. So everything, and then what next, we'll start talking about food in a couple of months, Paul. Everything that has a tangible value is going to rise in price. Everything that's financialization, like the Qs and things like that, they're all going to start suffering, or you're going to see what's called a rotation out of those high-flying, FANG stocks. So that's my recommendation to folks is to do that. Hey, we can help you and get you on the right stuff, teach you how to do this so that you can be independent and have something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. Once you learn it's not hard to trade. It's just difficult because people don't have the right tools. And we'll just teach you the right tools. The rules don't change. There's still greed and fear involved here, and there's momentum and panic, and those things all get baked into the prices, and you can actually see the action. And we have algorithms that basically tell us these things, and we actually even provide those algorithms that you can even stick on your own PC, through a charting program that you can have access to our signals on. So we can teach you how to trade. We'll give you the trading toolkit. And also you can be in our chat rooms and just like we're talking now or chatting now, you can interact with us and become a better trader. So that's what we're thinking. I don't think anything changes for the election. There might be a little bit more volatility. But one thing too, Paul, and sorry for the long monologue, but the market is telling us that Trump's going to win the election. So as long as something doesn't happen untowards between now and basically the 1st of November, that the stock market is saying we like the horse we're with. Now we just have to see and make sure nothing comes of it. I think the market, the economy is people give Trump all the credit for the economy. They're giving him none of the blame for the COVID. I think people understand it outside of his hands. I think there was a couple of hiccups that he probably took a hit on with the response from the virus. Whether we agree with it or not, that's in the perception. But other than that, people trust him. They trust him to keep them safe, and they trust him to find jobs. And I think you're starting to see a lot of pushback, and you're starting to see the poll numbers going beyond people's ability to hide them now. So all those things they're saying is, let's buy the things that are undervalued. Even though the stock market might be fine and may not sell off, you want to buy stuff that's going to go up in value versus just churn up there, Paul.
Bob Cuddler, folks, at TradeGeniusAcademy.com. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can always call Bob at 1-800-949-1408. He's running some summer specials on basic stock market, ETF trading, also educational package. If you want to get control of your own destiny and start learning how to trade, this is the man to help you. He has a tremendous winning record even during this volatile year. And it sounds like, even though we're coming into the third quarter, a lot of times you have that October surprise based on profits and projections, and you always see that in October. Even though we have an election that's coming, people are starting to say, let's ride this thing out. Let me ask you a question, Bob. Because I don't know this at all. I don't know what to do with this. But Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, is there any kind of economic plan if this man was to actually somehow get to become president? Is it a disaster plan, or what is it they would do?
So what the Democrats want to do is create an economic environment where the Democrats never lose another election. So that difference between you and I and everybody listening here is economic well-being. So what the Democrats will quickly do is to create enough dependency of the people that traditionally vote for them to be able to overwhelm any opposition. And so that means they'll continue bringing people into the country that are poor with low skills that immediately need to depend on the government, which is a better deal than they have in their home countries. They're going to obviously turn race against each other. I feel awful for the African American community because they're going to be overwhelmed with the Hispanic community and the competition for illegal immigrant jobs. Nobody ever talks about that. They're going to definitely try to sidebar white people, especially if you're over 50. And they're going to try to create, basically an environment where they have enough control and they provide only enough to keep the noise level from riots. And other than that, they don't care. You look at Central America, you look at South America, you look at Europe, and it's these guys they rather be kings of dunghills than to be leaders of men and women. They don't care. In Brazil, the rich hop from high rise to high rise to an estate on a helicopter. They give those people down below them not a second thought. Pelosi and Schumer, listen to the way they talk. They look their noses down on people. That's all you need to know. Basically the self-righteousness and the haughtiness. I'm always reminded of the last days when basically you have to work a full day for barley, which is like the cheapest grain there is, just enough to keep you alive, but don't hurt the wine and the oils, right? That's where we are today. And I think that's what the wealthy, they prefer. They don't care. If they can go from Pacific Heights in San Francisco, hop over to Napa, right? And miss all the slums that are showing up in downtown San Francisco, they don't care. And flyover country. So that's what's at stake here. I mean, basically, it's the dismantling of the Western, the democratic, I don't know, experiment you want to call it for them. They're trying to unwind this 300 years that we had and turn it back into the way it was for the first 4,000 years of human civilization.
This is the real truth, folks. This is why socialism, communism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, isms, godless atheism, it's a belief that just the few, the elitist, and everyone else is just basically peasants. And I think that what you're saying is we don't want to become that. You can see what's happening to Europe. You can see what's been happening in third world countries around the world. And why do we want to even consider that ideology as something that would make sense for America? They don't have any idea what's going on. And I think there's enough, but I'm praying there's enough people with enough common sense in this country that will stand up and vote and do the right thing to go forward. And you need to get control of your own life, folks, a little bit. Take control of your own life. And some of you have the capability to do it. I recommend that you go check out TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Brock, put up TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Put up those summer specials again. And check this out, folks, because at 1-800-949-1408, that's 1-800-949-1408. I mean, we got kids going to college, Bob, getting master's degrees and doctorate degrees in basket weaving. I mean, they really don't know what's going on. And they're being taught how to be community activists. They're being taught how to do protesting. Even Dr. Fauci was asked by Jim Jordan a couple days ago, should protesting be stopped for a little while because they could spread the COVID? And he said, well, I don't know. I don't understand the question. Does Dr. Fauci know what's going on, or is he part of this leaning left liberal ideology?
Well, I mean, he's a leftist. He's made that clear in the past. He just didn't want to get trapped with the answer. But the COVID is basically a convenient mechanism. Because look, they tried climate change, and people blew that off. So they said, we're going to up the stakes here, and we're going to tell you you're going to die if you don't listen to us. I always laugh because this is going to fail too. An asteroid's going to come. And then when I did that joke, the very next week they talk about an asteroid coming. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Right.
Now we got the UFOs, So look, godless people want to be God on earth.
Right.
And so that's what you're dealing with here. And that's why they get so mad. It's not a disagreement with them. You're basically telling them their worldview is wrong. It's not a disagreement over should we have less defense and a little bit more this, should we have less welfare and more workfare? I mean, literally, it's a world. We're at a point where it's a worldview is going to win here or not. And the problem we have is that not enough people have experienced the downside of this because of where the Federal Reserve has been basically bailing people out for these last, dozen to 20 years, is that things have been good enough to keep people on the, to keep people from getting too excited or to feel and experience hardship so that they know how to overcome it. And by the time they do it this time, it may be too late for people to realize, oh my gosh, I made a mistake here. I can't overemphasize the importance of this election. And what I heard from something that really troubled me is a lot of evangelicals aren't registered to vote. And I'm like, what are you thinking? I'm always reminded of the parable of I'm just going to wait on God, and a big flood comes. And the guy gets on the roof, and guy comes with a boat, and he says, hey, I'm going to rescue you. He goes, no, I'm waiting on God. And then a helicopter comes, the water's getting higher. And he goes, no, I'm waiting on God. And the water goes over the house, and he drowns. He gets to heaven. And he said, God, I prayed for your deliverance. He goes, what are you talking about? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. And people are so passive now that they need to get engaged. It's okay for Christians to be engaged and to speak. And I'm starting to see it. And ironically, you're seeing it in the African American community. You're seeing it in the immigrant community of saying, we're tired of this. We know how this ends. You young liberal white people, wake up. This is not what they're selling you is not what you're going to get. You're a useful idiot.
Bob, also, let me ask you a question. Let's say a UI is what they call it in the intelligence community, a useful idiot. Let me just say, Bob, let's say Trump wins, all right? I think he is going to win. I do. I really believe it. What do you see the next 4 years, the second term of a Trump presidency? What do you think would be his agenda during those 4 years to strengthen America, to grow it? How do you see it working?
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to Fortress America. You'll see less trade. You'll see tighter relationships with what I would call primary friends. I think you and I talked about this before. You'll see what I call the Five Eyes. United States, England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. And then in there, I would add Mexico, India, Israel into that mix of countries that have always been faithful, that have a commonality, and that trade could be virtuous between them. It's not mercantilist. And then I'm not saying other people will be excluded, but that's going to be the club. And I think they're going to build from there. And if that works, I think Trump will continue to try to dismantle this bureaucracy, and hopefully there's some sort of satanic undertones into this bureaucracy that I hope gets rooted out, that we're starting to see here with the Ghislaine Maxwell and with the Epstein stuff. So hopefully we'll see more of that get rooted out. But I think there's going to be more of that. And I think, Trump will be absolutely focused on infrastructure, and he wants everybody to have a job. Look, this guy wants to be loved, okay? And he's a people person. I think he's going to try to walk out of here saying, I did the most things for the most people.
Yeah, don't you think that, well, what about the deep state? Do you think he's going to use William Barr to really, because if you think about it, nobody, this whole Russia hoax, this whole FISA court, this whole Comey lying to the Congress, leaking and lying, the Comeys, the John Brennamans, the Clintons, all these people, nobody's been arrested or put on trial. I mean, it was Trump's guys like Michael Flynn who went to, was about ready to go to prison. It was Roger Stone almost went there, and it was some of his guys that got sent away for a little while. Do you think there will be a deep state cleansing? Can he do it? Is it too big? He can't. I don't know.
Well, look, I think that's why I said I think I think a lot of these people are blackmailed, Paul, and compromised. I really do. And I think that's what's making it so hard is that, whatever that cabal was, whether Clinton was leading it or Clinton was part of it, Maxwell was leading it, Maxwell was a part of it, they have a lot of dirt on a lot of people. And I think that's, been holding the fort here. And I think once that goes, they flush. And, Trump's already hinted that maybe I should decentralize some of this bureaucracy back out into the country. Move the Department of Agriculture out of D.C. and move it into Kansas City. Take the Department of Interior, move it to Utah. Take the Department of Energy and move it out to Santa Fe. Get these things out where the action is, and that is one way you can break apart the deep state. And then there has to be some prosecutorial reform with the FBI and even with the DAs. I mean, they're little kingdom. There's no control over what these people can or can't do. And that's kind of scary for everybody.
That was a great analogy, and what a great way to do it. Break up the kingdom, split it up, send it all out to different places, let some of the local people there become part of the federal government by putting the agencies in the right locations of the country. And, Ronald Reagan said it. He said that the problem with government is that it's the government. Okay, too much government. He was always about smaller government, more power for the states, less for the federal government. I think Trump, in a lot of ways, is the same way. He feels the same way. He has a lot of the same ideologies as Ronald Reagan, and I think that he's going to win the election. I'm going to be positive about that. It's going to be very interesting. It might get real ugly the next 90 days. Let's not get hit with an asteroid, Bob, and we can come back together next month. But folks, seriously, go to TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's www.TradeGeniusAcademy.com. 1-800-949-1408. And Bob, I take it you don't think that the Federal Reserve this guy here saying let's lock down the economy for 6 weeks real hard will help the economy. I don't know what that guy's smoking and token, but that's not going to work. And we thank you for being a part of this program today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And look, Trump's approval rating is higher than Obama's was by 10 points at the same point going into his second term. So they can't hide this stuff. So let's keep praying. Hey, that's all we can do, guys, until we vote.
And let's be sure we vote.
God answers prayers.
Amen. Let's pray and let's vote. And I'm glad you brought it up about the evangelicals, because there's been a riff. There's been an undercurrent of some really, really conniving individuals to try to divide the evangelicals and turn them against Trump. But I think that I think most of the evangelicals at the end of the day are going to say, what in the world? You can't vote for that over there. So stay with Trump. And anyway, I think Trump has done a great job. I really think he has. I think it's a no-brainer. And I would like to see him win about 47 states and let's bury this ideal of socialism.
Only a pastor has that kind of faith.
All right. Bob, God bless you. We'll see you next time, folks. Again, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's www.tradegeniusacademy.com. Pick up the phone, check it out, okay? Get some training and start participating. This is maybe an opportunity for you. Some of you, it might literally change your life to get an opportunity to learn how to deal and how to be a part of a trading, okay? Let Bob teach you. He's a good man. God bless.